What if I told you that you could design and live the life that you want on your own terms? Would you do it? Would you take a leap into the unknown? Or would you settle for a life of limits, a life of safety but lacking true meaning? Zeph Moses Blacksburg here, and I'm on a journey to help you ignite your inner passions, let go of your fears, and get more out of life. Will you join me and make this year your year of purpose? Welcome to the Year of Purpose podcast. What's going on, everyone? Zeph Blacksburg here again with another episode of the Year of Purpose podcast. And today I'm joined by my friend Adam Hommey. We actually just spent some time in San Diego a little while back. You guys probably saw our video podcast we did on the Facebook page there. But Adam is the founder and creator of Help My Website Sell and the Business Creators Institute. He helps you emancipate the power of information, increase your website conversions, and simplify your path to launch so you spend less time editing and maintaining and more time educating and monetizing your business. And for years, Adam has been the secret weapon in the arsenal of dozens of internet marketers, executive marketing solution providers, and professional service providers such as attorneys, accountants, medical professionals, and the like. And today, Adam's going to share how breaking a printer Office Space style brought forth a life-changing breakthrough. And so I'm going to let you get into that because I don't want to share the story for you, but maybe tell us a little bit about what led up to you deciding to break a printer and what you learned.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on your show here. I'm really honored by this opportunity. I think it's fantastic, and I never get tired of telling this story because I think this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs need to hear. One of the challenges we face as entrepreneurs, particularly online entrepreneurs, is we find ourselves in a scenario where, to be as blunt as possible, we're expected to put up a front. We can't always share what's really going on with our lives with the people around us, or at least we don't feel like we can. We find ourselves in situations where our mastermind colleagues also become our clients, so that becomes sometimes a little bit less of a free space, even if they're completely understanding and supportive of you, which is an experience that I have very much in my mastermind. But at the same time, we don't like to leave that stuff around. And when we look at our social media properties, our LinkedIn, our Twitter, our Facebook, which is really more like our personal avatar, the representation of what we want the world to see, we start putting all this stuff on, then we're just spreading drama, basically. It's like, oh, woe is me, please send me prayers and all this other stuff. That's just a place we can't really go. Now, that being said, we are human beings. We experience challenges, we experience frustrations, and sometimes all of this stuff creeps up when things are going really well. We think of challenges in our business, being overwhelmed, being stressed out, being in a very low place, is things that happen when clients leave, when we can't get clients, when we can't pay the bills. But sometimes it happens when things are going extremely well. And this is something that's not spoken about nearly enough in the literature or the marketing. You book a bunch of new clients, and these are exactly the type of clients you want. It's the kind of projects you want. Now, you're having this holy crap moment because all these things you've been striving for, all these things you've been saying, please just give me some of this and just get me out of this old loop. Well, now it's here. Wow, you worked for it and now you got it. Now what?
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Good change is sometimes as scary as bad change, or positive change is sometimes as scary as negative change, because it is change. And now you're looking at it not as a hypothetical, but as something that's really in front of you right now. And what you discover sometimes is perhaps your systems aren't as ready as you thought they were, or something in your systems falls through, like a critical team member leaves and leaves you holding the bag. That's happened to a lot of people I know. Or you find yourself in a place where it's like you're walking kind of through a haze, like, okay, this is what heaven feels like, but where do I sit?
So you just feel out of place.
Exactly. Now, let's get back to my Office Space moment here, and we want to talk about that hot summer day back in 2007 when I smashed my printer.
Now, did you blast that song that goes, "It feels good to be a gangster," while you did it?
No, I didn't do that, but I was probably using language. It was either that or worse. So here's what happened. This was not one of those situations where things were going extremely well. I had, you know how we all have a client from hell every once in a while? I had three.
Absolutely.
I had three all at the same time. And I'm not going to belabor the podcast about what was so bad about them or anything like that. But let's just say that I was in the scenario where I was running so ragged that I had ran out of food. I had money for food. I just didn't seem to have the time to go pick up any. The way my mornings were starting was I had created a separate email account through which I could communicate with my team members, just so that I could have at least a moment's respite before I checked the main email account and found all the midnight nuclear bombs that these three clients in particular were just very fond of dropping on me. I know one did it on purpose just because they got a kick out of ruining my morning before I even woke up. I could go on every cliche of what an awful client is and things like that. And I think in one case, the person was just rotten. I think in another case, this was somebody who was a really good person, but just really didn't need to be a client here. And then in the third case, there was a simple miscommunication issue that had just ballooned. And, I own responsibility for all three of those. In one case, I saw the bad client coming. I should have just said no. In another case, it was something I failed to address. And in the third case, I just hadn't grown the testicular fortitude that I really needed to solve that situation. So here I am that morning. As I said, I'd ran out of food. Even though I had money for food, I'd run out of food, and I'd eaten toothpaste for breakfast that morning. And after dealing with the latest crisis of existential proportions, I needed to print something out of my printer. I believe it was a document that my accountant desperately needed me to sign and fax back to him so he could file something. I can't remember exactly what it was. I just know the time was a matter of the essence. So between one disaster and another, I hit print on my computer to print out a piece of paper. In the middle of printing out the page, the printer decides to cancel the job on me because it says it ran out of ink. And I'm thinking, you could not have told me half a page ago that you ran out of ink.
Yeah.
You could not have warned me that it was running low on ink. You could not have wasted this piece of paper that I don't have time to replace because you couldn't tell me you ran out of ink. Next thing you know, a year and a half later, when I moved out of the apartment, I was still finding pieces of that printer. I didn't drop it on the floor just once. I picked it up and dropped it several times.
Oh, man.
I mean, anybody who's a fan of a TV show called The Shield, which was on TV many years ago, may remember the scene in season 5 when the character played by Forrest Whitaker attempted to sting the strike team over the Russian illegal prescriptions. And when it backfired on him, he literally trashed his office. He smashed his laptop in his bag and threw a chair through the window and everything else. That pretty much is what was happening here. So here I am. I'm at a very low place right now. I'm thinking I just smashed my printer because it ran out of ink. That was a kind of a disproportionate use of problem solving, shall we say, right there. I mean, the solution was to get another cartridge. But I decided that the printer had committed the mortal sin of wasting a piece of paper, so it had to die. So we laugh about this now. So I'm thinking, how the hell did I get, right? I had a realization at that moment. I thought to myself, I'm having a really bad day here. I'm not enjoying my business very much, and something just happened here that caused me to go over the edge. But I can draw a line right now and say that right now, up until this moment, I have allowed frustration, overwhelm, and lack of testicular fortitude to get in the way of my success. From this point forward, I claim a successful business with balance and proper management of timelines and whatever else was coming out in my head at the moment. So I reached out and I did an emergency coaching session with my business coach at the time. She was fortunately available to do a session with me like at the top of that hour. And within about a 30-minute conversation, we put together a plan for essentially fixing the issues with the 3 clients. And basically what that boiled down to, she had me, while I was on the phone with her, send a warning to one of them about if they ever question my business practices again, they're gone.
Nice.
For the second one, to tell them to chill out. And she actually had me use the words chill out.
Which is pretty rare. Like,
Yeah,
normally you would not do that.
knowing full well it would set this guy off, but that was the intention, to bring it to a head. And then the third case, she had me just fire the person.
Wow.
So how these all worked out is the one that I fired outright came back, asking if we could start on a new page. So that was fine. We finished the project and off we go. The one where she had me tell him to chill out, he just went away basically a week or 2 later. The third one, which was the one who was constantly trying to tell me how to run my business, we ended up finishing his project and then doing another one with him.
Oh.
So that problem got solved. But the bottom line is, within 2 to 3 weeks, all these issues went away and I could see the sun again. So the epiphany I had that day when I was looking at the remains of my printer, thinking, boy, if only you'd just saved me that piece of paper, you wouldn't be in the world you're in right now, is, yes, I had my Office Space moment, is, this is really horrible. But you saw what I just described to you. I was able to take actions to fix the situation. And this being my worst day as an entrepreneur was still better than my best day working for somebody else. Because my worst day as an entrepreneur, I could take that piece of office equipment, I could smash it, and I could feel better for doing so. I could take actions necessary to reset relationships that were harmful to me, both business-wise and personally. One way or another, all those relationships got fixed. And I had the power to say, no, this is not the business I want. This is not the life I want. And I have the power right now to make these changes. Now, you work for somebody else or you're in a corporate setting. This isn't true of all companies because many have evolved past this. But in many cases, not only do people get to do this to you just because they're on some higher level of some org chart, but you have to thank them for the abuse.
Yeah.
So that's the difference I have right there. Right. So that's what I had those experiences in corporate world. I mean, I worked for a place once where I was told, if I say the world is round, but this other person who's higher than you on the org chart says it's flat, not only does that mean that you're wrong, but you owe them an apology for arguing with them. I'm like, what the hell? And when I realized, when I looked down at my printer, at least I don't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Somebody tries to tell me the world is flat, I can say, you know what? You're too stupid to work with me.
Yeah, no, it's
because even before Columbus, they knew the world was flat. This idea that we suddenly discovered the world was round when Columbus sailed around the world is a fairy tale. It was known for centuries before then the world was round. So don't hand me all of that. We've known for a long time the world was round. So you try and tell me the world was flat, I think there's something up with you. They call them globes for a reason, not flattened out pieces of pita bread with ink on them. So that's what I want everybody to hear, and this is why I love telling the printer story, is because we need to make time in our businesses and our lives to be ourselves. We need to bring in energies that foster us and keep out energies that bring us down. And we always have the power at any given time to hit the reset button.
Yeah, that's a really valuable lesson. It's funny kind of listening to your story because I picture a little bit of like Adam Sandler and Jack Nicholson in the anger management movie.
Yes.
But it's interesting. I'm kind of noticing a weird pattern where the emotion of anger is actually being tied to some pretty serious transformations in a lot of people's lives, because that's ultimately where I quit my job. Was this lady came in, I was working at the Apple store, she freaked out because for whatever reason, they usually drop their phone in the toilet and all of a sudden it's your fault. and it's kind of like the printer, like it wasn't really the printer's fault, but it just so happens that the printer got the brunt of all the force.
Yes.
And so it's interesting that one small little change has ultimately led to being able to, live your life the way that you want to, prevent people from pissing you off, and ultimately, I'm sure you haven't taken on nearly as many clients that bother you anymore or question what you're doing.
Okay, well, here's the thing. I don't think we come into the world necessarily with all the emotional intelligence we need to handle every single situation. Some of this stuff does creep up on us. Like I didn't exactly plan for there to be a phase in my business where I had 3 clients from hell simultaneously turning the sky dark at high noon. I didn't plan on that. And and obviously, taking the printer and just smashing it because it ruined a piece of paper was a very disproportionate reaction to a scenario, and it was misplaced. I get all that too, and I knew that at the time. But as we continue to evolve as human beings and as we continue to evolve as business people and as entrepreneurs, we develop a different set of mechanisms for coping and for being able to make the changes. So, I mean, I've had other situations, perhaps not quite as drastic, where I've recognized it was time to just take a pause, look at things differently. And I have not ruined any printers since. I can tell you that I've had my current printer for 5 years now, and we've had a great relationship. So I do not hate printers. I just want that to be clear. This one just pushed me over the edge, and I will tell you that the scanner on it was also broken, so it was kind of on its last legs anyway. But because I was giving it extra innings, it could have had the decency to finish that print job for me instead of just ruining that piece of paper. I mean, I was just really. Oh man. Yeah. What we need to recognize above all is we are human and we have reactions that aren't the textbook definition of how we're supposed to react, and it's okay to just sometimes just get really mad and scream bloody murder.
Yeah.
And better to do it within the space of your home office than at a client or at somebody publicly.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's that's something that you don't want the public to see, but the interesting thing about public seeing us, and I know you brought this up at the beginning when we were starting to have this conversation, was that most people don't see these things. They don't see any of this going down. We do have to put up a front most of the time, and so we've kind of opened the door now and shown the people listening a little bit of the side of entrepreneurship that you don't see, because they always see this glorified, oh my gosh, he works for himself, he makes all this money, he gets to do whatever he wants. And now we've kind of scared them into thinking that they're going to be chucking a printer out their window the first weekend of running a business.
No. And since you bring that up, there's a phrase you mentioned that also brought into very profound relief the power of entrepreneurship. And this happened the printer was in 2007. So in 2009, it was Friday around this time, around 10:30 in the morning, give or take, actually. So I'm out in Los Angeles. I'm hanging out at my buddy's house out in LA. And he made an observation. I think I was telling him something about some challenge I was having in my business at the time, and he said, "Look, it's 10:30 Friday morning. What are most people doing?" And I said, "They're working in offices." And yeah, you're hanging out with me, so you got to look at this and realize that even though you don't get to do everything you want, you kind of do get to do whatever you want.
Yeah, no, very true.
And I said, "Yes, that's right."
It's where I've been for actually 2 years and 3 weeks now.
Congratulations.
And I wouldn't trade it for anything. The ups, the downs, every single part of it. I mean, going into it, of course, I was scared. I really had no clue what I was getting into, but I think that the benefits kind of outweigh the poor experiences.
Yeah, I for 2 years after I started my business, I still had a full-time job. I even got promoted in my full-time job. And there was a point there where the seesaw was kind of going this way and kind of going this way. And I could have been nudged in either direction because I wasn't 100% sure. And then I get ambushed by my boss's boss one day. Had brought me into her office to ask me a question about some specific case with one of our providers, because I work for an insurance company. And she then all of a sudden just ambushes me and lays on me all this stuff about how I'm unfocused and unmotivated because I'm never at my desk. And whenever somebody tries to call me, I'm never there. The fact is, number one, introverts don't answer the phone, number one. I mean, that's the first thing. Number two, the reason I was not at my desk, I don't want to answer my phone, is because I was in charge of a process that involved 4 different departments working together. And my way of making the process go smoothly was to actually, get out from behind my cubicle and my extension and go sit with people and make the process work. but that was deemed being lazy, unfocused, and rambling around. So
Yeah.
I just kind of sat there listening, and yeah, okay. And I even asked her at one point, so how could you help me? Just to see if she had a real answer, and she didn't.
Wow.
So I'm thinking, okay, this made my decision right there. So
Yeah.
she probably thought she got through to me, right? Well, she did get through to me. She made that decision I was trying to make. So it was that very evening. I went to one of my because I had a couple smaller clients. And I said to the guy, I said, look, I really need to get the show on the road with my business here, and I need one score so that I have enough money so I can make this jump here. And he said, all right, how much do you need? And I said, well, I gave you that. And he said, well, I can't afford your proposal because I had basically proposed myself into a full-time job a few months ago. And he said, no, think realistically. How much do you need to survive for 6 months?
Yeah.
And I thought about it, and I just took what I was currently making and multiplied it by six. And that came out to about, I'm going to say $5,000. I can't remember what the exact number was. And he said, all right, so why don't you send me a paperwork for a $10,000 contract. You're going to help me put on my upcoming event,
Wow.
and I'll get the money over to you, and you can quit.
Wow.
I said, okay, hang on 30 minutes. And we had the deal done that night. And the next day I gave my notice.
That's great.
Yeah.
So,
So,
but
so, so yeah, she did solve her problem. She didn't have this aimless wandering around employee anymore. And
right.
so I solved that problem for her, and I gave her the problem of solving a turnover issue to boot.
Mm. Well, look, you're a problem solver. I mean,
I,
whether
I, I am a problem solver. I'm like that guy who sleeps till noon because he's not a morning person, so he just sleeps till noon. He's a problem solver.
yeah, absolutely. I'm in the same boat. I actually just I took on this co-working space, and it's open basically 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and I can
That's
go in
nice.
Monday through Friday anytime between then.
Right.
And I realized I've been paying for this place for like 3 months now, and I'm not going in. Why? Because I'm my most productive from about 6 p.m. until about 2 a.m.
That's an interesting epiphany, and I've been thinking more about that myself lately because I noticed that I seem to get more done when I work after dinner.
yeah.
So I'm actually thinking about shifting my entire days to just simply reflect that because it's my 24 hours. I can do it with it wherever I want. And I can tell you another reason why I think I'm highly productive when I work out of the home. This is Sandra here. What's nice is I have my cats. She has a feline maid here, Stella, who's around someplace. But what's nice is whenever I need a break from the grind of the entrepreneurship, I can just go find my kitties.
Nice. So at least you get a
Like,
nice little break.
yeah, we'll get the one toy, play with the red dot, something like that. Just have some fun for a little bit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so you brought up a good point there is having fun. We talk about the bad side of things, we talk about the good side of things, and then everyone's kind of like, "Well, where's the part where like I take a vacation?"
It's funny you brought this up because this is something that I've been working on. I found myself in a situation. I wasn't quite at the point of smashing a printer because, as I said, my current printer and I have been in a 5-year relationship and it's going great. But I did find myself in a scenario where it's like, I feel like I work 19 hours a day, 6 days a week, and yeah, if I look at what's really going on in my schedule, there are days off, but these are days where I'm so exhausted, I'm just collapsed on the couch all day long.
Yeah.
So, and I'm making enough money to get by, but I haven't quite accomplished my dream. So, what's this solving for me? So, I'm becoming ruthless in the other direction. We recently had Memorial Day, and in past Memorial Days, I would say, oh, cool, this is 3 days that I'm not going to have to deal with clients. I'm going to get a lot of work done.
Yeah.
No, I went and played in a pool. And I came in on Tuesday morning and I saw that some folks had been trying that entire weekend to get a hold of me and had already gotten to the "where are you" stage. And in many cases, this began on Saturday, and I'm thinking, I was here Friday. You're in the United States. You knew this was Memorial Day weekend. You knew it was the weekend.
Yeah.
Wait till the workday.
And it's a national holiday where everything is closed.
Right. So what this tells me is that to a certain degree, I was putting out the wrong messaging.
Mm.
Somewhere along the line, I allowed the perception to arise that that boundary did not exist. And the thing is, you can always reset your boundaries.
Yeah.
You can always reset your boundaries, and that's another good thing about entrepreneurship. When you work in an office type scenario where you're working for somebody else, then they can tell you things like, "Well, we expect you to be at your desk and answering your phone, and we're measuring how long it takes on average for you to respond to every email and all this." No, not at all. Not at all. And as you said yourself, you're discovering that your peak productivity is sometimes at night. And there are many scientific studies on this. You may just be a night owl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that I get a lot of stuff done in the evenings too. And I'm actually thinking about the possibility that my best move might be to simply shift my business to support that. And then
And
while
I think it
everybody
makes
else is scampering
sense.
around all day, I'll go sit by the pool and have a nice day and then come back up here and work my ass off for 5 or 6 hours and get more done than I would otherwise. That's starting to sound pretty appealing. I may give it a try. And the other good thing is if one thing doesn't work, you can always try something else. You don't have to make resolutions you'll stick with forever. Like, from now on, I am going to do this, and this. You can change. If it's not working, you can change. Or if the nature of your business changes, or the nature of the geography of your clients changes. Like, let's say suddenly you find that 90% of your clients are in Singapore and Malaysia, you can just change your day to be there when they are. Or change your day to be there when they're not. So your phone's not ringing off the hook.
That makes sense.
That's the choice. That's your choice.
Yeah. And you actually, there's something cool that I wanted to share with people because you set a great boundary with your emails. You actually have this autoresponder that comes up. And this is something I haven't seen a lot of people do, but essentially your like vacation auto response is always on.
Yeah. I actually have to update because it still has a message up from like my first day back from vacation. Sometimes I forget to change the nature of it, but I have found this thing is very helpful. Oh yeah, and when we go back to the printer story, one of the frustrations I had is I tried that as one of the early steps of trying to get my life under control. And then the one client who kept trying to tell me how to run my business sent me this excruciating email about this saying, "I don't appreciate you doing this. You're supposed to be there for me. You don't tell me when you're available," and all this other thinking. And now this was one of the cases the Empire struck back, and I had emailed him back. I said, okay, so my corporation is registered in the state of Nevada. Here's the link to the Secretary of State. Here's the license ID, and attached to that is the filing of the board of directors, so you know who has power over the company. Go look that up and find your name.
Ouch.
Do what I want. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it burned me. I burned them right back. And you don't ever want to get there with people.
Yeah.
You don't want to get there. And that's one of the things that led to the Office Space incident is I allowed it to get there. And I own responsibility for letting it get there. It became acrimonious in that way because this was about the 7th or 8th time he tried to, in a condescending tone of voice, tell me how to run my business. The first time I should have said, look, this is what you hired us for. This is the value we provide. We have a way of doing things. If this is already feeling like something that's not going to work out in the way you hoped, then perhaps we should have a conversation about this. Maybe we need to reset expectations, or maybe we need to give your money back.
Yeah.
I had one of those scenarios about 3 years ago, and there was a project we had, and it just wasn't working out at all. And I'm going to say this in the most loving possible way. The client was a Lulu. And so after getting another one of these long, rambling emails about the misalignment of the cosmos and everything else, I picked up the telephone and I called her. And she was probably expecting me to apologize for everything, right? So I said, how are you? Good. And then I paused, the uncomfortable silence. And then I could just hear through the phone that she was, that the tension was rising on her end. And I said, I read your email. And she said, yeah. And I said, do you want to cancel the project? And she said, well, I don't know, maybe. Let me cut to the denouement here. We came up with a scenario where we recognized that it wasn't the best fit. But my commitment to her was to leave her in a place where she was better off having worked with me than having not worked with me. So we figured out what percentage of the project we were going to complete, what parts of the thing we were going to do, right? And then what parts that we were just going to either not bill for or refund for or whatever. And we came to a happy medium somewhere in there that allowed us to close off and walk away as friends. So funny thing, not only did she come back later and work with us for another project and it went outstanding,
Wow.
but she also referred someone to us who became a 2-year client.
Nice.
Yeah. So it doesn't always have to end badly, and it is actually okay to have a conversation like that. It's not necessarily anybody's fault that maybe you get into something and things just didn't work out the way you expected. That can happen.
Yeah.
And you have to give yourself the space to allow for course correction as you go along. And maybe you find out that this is something that's just not going to work out for you, or it's not going to work out for the client. Or maybe you find out if you just do things a little bit differently, it turns out to be better than you originally planned.
Absolutely. And I think this is a great lesson to kind of round things up on, because
Yes.
things are not going to go as planned, plain and simple.
Right. They never do. They never do.
Yeah. If you quit your job, if you start a business, if you don't quit your job, whatever it is that you do, it's not going to go as planned, because I mean, I kind of have gotten to this point where I think that there is no plan anymore, right? Like we're all living this life that we think has been scripted for us of what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to get a college degree. We're supposed to get a job. We're supposed to get married and have kids. And so I guess, what are your final lessons that you want everyone to hear about? Kind of knowing what you know now, having broken one printer and no more after that point. And just for anyone listening who is either A, considering leaving their job and looking for a good reason to take the leap, or B, someone who is happy with their job but is not totally happy with their life.
Well, my first advice is have 2 printers and have one of them be a cheapo printer, so you can at least make a judgment call and go after the one that's only $99. That's my first thing. The second is, if you have animosity towards your printers, you might want to get some help with that. There are meditation exercises. There are things you can do in terms of clearing your mind space. There may be some professional help you can get for that, but it is possible to find love for your printer. I mean, as I said, me and my Canon Wi-Fi printer, we've been in a 5-year relationship. It's worked out great for both of us. Neither of us see it ending anytime soon. So it is possible to fall in love with your printer. Now, if you find yourself in a situation where you're not necessarily in love with your printer, like maybe you're working in an office, you're working for a company, you're working for somebody else, and you don't like the printer in the office, or you have some kind of like internal strife over access to the printer, boy, that's another story we could do another podcast on, believe me. I mean, I worked in this one company. I mean, there were people like literally throwing down in the hallways verbally over use of a color printer. It was just ridiculous. I mean, it's just funny. Yeah, if you find yourself in that type of scenario where so much energy is being expended over what kind of job should be running through the color printer versus how are we serving our customers, how are we making a difference in the world, or I'm coming here in the morning and I'm getting measured by the average amount of time it takes for me to respond to an email, but you can't really see where the benefit is either to the company or the customer, then it's, you have power of choice. And the advice I always give people, because I've done things, it took me 2 years to get to the point where I went in my business full time. We're coming up on a 10-year anniversary of that.
Nice.
I also had made a decision that I was going to leave Pennsylvania and move to a warmer, brighter part of the world, someplace where I was closer to the online marketing industry and where all the seminars and all the activity is, and someplace where I didn't have to deal with blizzards and attitudes that just didn't work for me, that kind of brought me down. And I knew when I made the decision to do it, it was going to take me a couple years to get to the point where I could make it happen. So my advice to you is, if you look around and you see, well, I'd like to quit my job, but it's going to take me 3 years to get to the point where I'll have enough in savings and I can get something else going here, so at least I have some cash flow when I handed my notice. Or I really don't like where I'm living right now. I really want to ski, so I want to move to Vail, Colorado. If that's going to take you 3 years to do, then my question is, what can you do today to bring yourself closer to that? Because if you wait till tomorrow, it's going to take you 3 years and 1 day, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so and you never really get there unless you start right now. And I think that's probably the best way to end this up is, start now. There's this great picture that I actually saw. It might have been on Instagram or something like that,
Right.
but it said something along the lines of, "Hey, do you remember that thing that you said you were gonna do that you never really did that you should have done? You should start that."
I love that one. Yes.
And it's so true.
Yes, yes, or do you remember that? Or do you remember that guy who said he was going to do it but never did? Me neither.
Yeah. It's how you should be living your life now is whatever it is that you want to do right now, you should start it. And I don't care if you think that, money is a good excuse. And I don't care if you think that time is a good excuse. There's still some step in that process that you could do right now.
Sure, sure. Yeah, as I said, if it's going to take you 3 years to do it, then get started today because otherwise you're looking at 3 years in one day and so on and so forth.
Awesome. Well,
Make it happen.
I can't think of a better way to round up the episode. So,
Yes.
Adam, it's been awesome talking to you. I wish you many more years with your printer.
Yes.
And for everyone listening, definitely check out yearofpurpose.com. On our website, we'll have both the YouTube video and the podcast link for this episode, as well as a transcript so that you can read through that if you'd like and find little notes and things. Adam, what's the best way for people to kind of keep in touch with you and just keep track of what you're doing?
Well, I can be found on various social media platforms. I'm the only person in the world with my name, so if you spell it correctly, you're bound to find me. I also encourage folks to stop by helpmywebsitesell.com and see what's going on there. And also, I suggest if you want to get some great free stuff, I've kind of put all in one place, just go to businesscreatorsinstitute.com. That's businesscreatorsinstitute.com. And I have a treasure trove of free stuff. I'm just going to leave it at that. When you go to the page, there's a nice little video that explains what it is. And if that's something that you find highly of interest to you, then do take a bold step toward it.
Sounds good to me. Well, Adam, thanks so much for being here. And I think it's pretty nice and warm outside here today. So I think you'll get to enjoy that weather as well on the other coast.
Just one final thing that I inserted here is another decision I made is no matter how busy I am, every day that it's warm enough, I find a way to spend an hour out in a swimming pool because I moved to this place both geographically and the community I live in right now because it has a very nice swimming pool.
And then you might as well take advantage.
If I don't have an hour for that, then maybe I do need to smash another printer.
All right, man. It's been awesome talking to you, and I hope to keep in touch with you. We will definitely have links to that website on the website as well, and we will talk to you next time.
All right, we'll see you.
You've probably heard me talk about designing a life that you actually want to live. You might have even heard about my travels or experiences and thought to yourself, yeah, I do want to do that. Eventually, someday I'll probably do it, and my guess is that you've been thinking about doing it for a long time. So I want to tell you this. Stop thinking. Your time is right now. You don't need any more time. You don't need any more info. You don't need to keep putting it off and planning for the perfect time because the truth of the matter is this. You could be the person who sits around and thinks about living a better life, or you can be the person that decides that today is the day that you're going to actually do it, and I want that for you. Because you already have what it takes. You've got a fire inside. Even if you can't see it right now, it's lit, but you need to open yourself up to the possibilities and throw a couple logs into the flames. So join me and the Year of Purpose tribe by subscribing to our YouTube channel and iTunes podcast. And if you really like us, please leave a review. This is Zephan Moses Blacksburg, and I can't wait to see you again on the Year of Purpose podcast.